gentlemen, welcome to ET Studios Tech Heal in association with ETHealthworld. We've been talking about the sort of innovations we're seeing in the healthcare industry, but what drives the investment in health? To discuss that, I have with me a very significant investor here today. Please join me in welcoming Girish Shivani, who is a managing partner at YourNest Venture Capital. They were, in fact, the first check at Dozee. They operate across verticals. They do many investments across deep tech. But today, we're going to be asking him more about his health tech investments. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. The pleasure is all mine.
Absolutely our pleasure, sir. And let me get right down to it. You have a very busy schedule today. So you are the first check at Dozee, which is making incredible strides in the healthcare space. What motivated you to be an early investor there? And also, what sort of impact do you see the company having made?
Sure. So I remember this was pre-COVID when we'd met Mudit and Gaurav, and we'd seen maybe 2,000 companies in health tech before that. And we never had the conviction to actually take the plunge and write a check because the lead cycles are much longer in health tech in terms of the regulatory clearances, etc. that is required. But what we saw, what Dozee was doing was they had a core IP that they had created. They had co-created the solution with some hospitals. They were already deployed in some hospitals and some geriatric facilities, and they were actually saving lives, and the passion with which the founders had actually built the product, brought it to a level where it was, truly deployable in market, was something that kind of piqued our interest. I remember Dozee was the last company we did before COVID. So face-to-face meetings, after that went for a toss. The fact that they had core IP, that they had certain amount of certifications, validations, and they were truly making an impact. I think those were the things that moved the needle for us when we wrote the first check.
Absolutely. And I can now see the value of a face-to-face meeting, right? This happened in 2019. And you are going to make another significant investment in another health tech company, you told us. So what are the factors that you look for before making an investment in health?
So because we are typically the first round of capital, for us, it's more about the founders. So the uniformity of vision that the founding team has, the tenacity they have, whether the product has been co-created with certain health institution. Access to data is the biggest challenge when it comes to certification. So what kind of data do they already have? Where are they on the certification path? Those are the kind of things that we look at. For us, IP is very important. We are a deep tech fund at the end of the day. So for us, core IP that is being created or will be potentially created is very important as a decision metrics. It's also about timing because some of these technologies take a lot of time to get into a stage where they can be truly commercialized. And in that sense, if you co-create it, some institution, it just helps in getting some of those certifications out of the way. So those are the kind of things one looks at when we're writing those first checks.
All right. So also looking through the regulatory and compliance lens, it is difficult to navigate emerging tech in the healthcare system. How do you as an investor assess the risk when it comes to tech in healthcare?
A lot of work that is happening in healthcare, especially on the AI ML side, to create core IP is not easy, and therefore, unless there is a hardware element to it, it becomes extremely difficult to go out and file for patents. The second challenge, as I said, was access to data, clinical data, especially when it comes to testing, validation, etc. And if you are a hardware manufacturer, then the entire piece around, manufacturing, CDSO, and all that stuff. So, for us, because we've been doing this for many years now, we not only help some of these companies in navigating those regulatory, minefields, as I call it, where they are on the product development and how they have thought about going through this regulatory, piece is very important for us because otherwise it can take forever to get to the other end of the funnel. And that's something that we typically are worried about because, we are the first check. It's not such a large sum of capital that we are deploying. And if a lot of time goes in getting those certifications, and with the way that technology is evolving, technology obsolescence is a real threat in our domain. So those are the kind of things one looks at, where are they on that certification life cycle? What kind of data have they been able to gather, generate, co-create? What kind of institutions are they working? What's the kind of advisory board that they've been able to put together? Because a lot of this, navigation requires connections and access to the right set of people at the right level. So all that comes into play when some of these decisions are taken.
So you must have kept a keen eye on the health tech market for the past few years. What has been the growth there, and what is the growth we can expect in the next few years?
I think there is the watershed moment in the entire health tech domain was the COVID. Pre-COVID versus post-COVID, there has been a huge shift with respect to, understanding how some of the solutions that are out there can become important in a scenario where there's a pandemic, which is like a black swan event. For example, I remember there were folks at IIT Kanpur who actually built a step down ICU literally with a CPAP pump and everything else. When COVID hit us. So clearly there is momentum, advancement, especially on the artificial intelligence, machine learning side, on the quantum compute side, access to technology. All that is kind of giving a fillip to the entire ecosystem. I was telling you earlier, we have a quantum company which actually, did a molecular discovery with a large cosmetic firm, discovering a new molecule for sunscreen, which is much more efficient than the current ones that are out there. So those are the kind of developments in technology and compute which we think will accelerate this entire, process around adoption of personalized medicine. There are new technologies on the genomic side like CRISPR, etc. Modified RNA. So there's a lot of stuff that is happening out there with respect to health tech. Today, if you look at it, physical disability as we know it does not exist. You can have a bionic arm, you can have an eye, you can hear, you can have an artificial ear. And there's a lot of work which is happening on the neurological side of it. I was talking to you about how one of these companies that I was evaluating was doing a predictive piece on epileptic seizures and stuff like that. So neurological disability as we know it, probably in the next 5, 7, 10 years would no longer be there. And I am of the firm belief that I'm today 54, with an average lifespan of another 30 years. In our lifetime, we would be in a situation where we will be able to stop the clock for everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time. My children, for example, would be able to stop the clock. You will be able to stop the clock at the prime of your life.
Wow.
And that's how we see this entire health tech domain, evolving over the next decade.
Wow, that's extremely futuristic indeed, and great news overall. But sir, what are the sort of challenges that have been there in the health tech space, especially in India?
I think, the biggest challenge has been the regulatory framework, to get through to the other end of the tunnel with respect to certifications, etc. And rightly so, because some of the stuff that is happening out there will get will improve human longevity or improve human quality of life, and therefore you need to be doubly sure about what's happening there. But if there are frameworks that can accelerate some of that process, I think that could make a huge difference between a lot of companies that do not see the end of the tunnel, and a lot of capital gets destroyed there. So if there is a way to kind of accelerate some of those certifications and regulatory frameworks, I think that would really, really help. Structured, for example, there's an FDA approval that the US has, there's a CE approval which happens in European markets, etc. They're fairly well structured in that sense. In India, I think we still lack some of those structures and frameworks to be able to get there quickly enough for it to be monetizable.
Perhaps that's still a work in progress.
Work in progress,
Yeah.
absolutely.
When you're making an investment in a healthcare company, how do you balance your commercial interest in it with the sort of real world impact it's making?
So I think if it makes a real world impact, the commercial interest gets taken care of automatically.
Okay.
So for example, in case of Dozee, I think they would have saved about 4,500 lives in the last few years. That's huge impact, right? And that gets reflected in the kind of order books they have, the kind of revenue cycles they have, etc. So anything that is to do with health tech is directly related to the human species in general, right? And impact is a double benefit in that sense. We are of the firm belief that if you can make an impact, everything else falls in place.
So not just health, you also have investments across the AI space. How does health compare to the sort of strides that are being made in other verticals?
I don't think comparison is fair because every industry has its own sets of challenges that they face. But today we are at a cross section of how technology has evolved and is evolving with respect to AI, with respect to GenAI, with respect to large language models, with respect to quantum compute, and there is this sangam of technologies happening which can really move the needle for the human species in general. For example, we were looking at opportunities where production of medicines and chemicals in space in a zero gravity situation, can the kind of effort that it requires to create that scenario on Earth is very different. In space, it's already there. So that's the kind of so that's an amalgamation of, for example, space tech, compute, because robotics, and material sciences, health tech. So all that is coming together now in a very significant manner to be able to move the needle across the segments. I gave you an example of quantum compute. Now, lots of the stuff that genomics will typically require for personalized medicine, regular compute might not be sufficient to get there. And therefore, any stride that happens in quantum compute will have a fallout on how health tech adoption and development unfolds. So that's the way this cross section of multiple technologies coming together, compute power increasing, is going to have domino effect on every segment in that sense.
Oh, it's great to witness this cross collaboration and
Absolutely.
intersection that's going to have an impact across industries, right? So for entrepreneurs who are watching this, if an entrepreneur were to come up to you with a health tech idea, what are the things they should be mindful about?
They should be trying to solve for the same problem. Quite a few times we've seen a couple of founders coming on the table, one trying to build a large opportunity, one trying to still focus on building a smaller opportunity. So that disconnect to our mind is difficult to fathom and also to bridge. So that's one thing. The other thing is that what kind of access to data sets do you have? And how are you co-creating those data sets with the potential end user of your product or service becomes extremely important, because those end users become your first lighthouse customers, literally, in that sense. And especially in health tech, where data plays a very important role when it comes to adoption and at an end user level. So those are the few things that one needs to give in. You also have to see that this does not remain in the realm of a project. A lot of times we see people doing as part of their PhD thesis projects, etc., which do not see the light of the day. Because either there is not intent to commercialize them, or it is not impactful enough to get to attract private capital. You have to solve for a large enough problem right up front to be able to get to a situation where you can attract private capital. So some of that stuff we see sometimes missing, when the founders bring these opportunities to us from an investment perspective.
But that's very informative indeed, and thank you for sharing that with us, sir. And also thank you so much for joining us in our conversation here today at ET Studios Tech Heal. It's been absolutely great listening to you. It's been very informative and revealing indeed the sort of factors that are driving investments in not just the health tech sector, but across AI and deep tech. Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, viewers, for watching us. And for more such insightful conversations, remember to stay tuned to ET Studios.